name's Stuart. I'm a long-time mental health nurse and trainer from the UK, and I like to help people cope with all sorts of different mental health problems. I'm also the bloke behind Tam Talking, a slightly quirky approach to mental distress that's available both online and face-to-face, depending upon where in UK you happen to live. If you'd like to know more about how to deal with your demons, or to help others deal with theirs, then subscribe to Tam Talking and come on in. In this video, I'd like to talk about anxiety. And let's face it, anxiety is just awful. It sucks. It's not the most serious mental disorder, and it's not the one that other people take most seriously, but it could be the most distressing, especially the kind of anxiety that never seems to go away. The sort of anxiety that seems to grow and grow, making your world smaller and smaller until it's hard to leave the house or even the bedroom. So why won't it go away? Well, the big problem with anxiety is that it's essentially a good thing. It's the emotion we feel that tells us about danger and gets us to do something about it, to hide, to run away, or to come out fighting. Anxiety is the feeling we get when we see a vicious dog or a speeding car comes careering around the corner towards us. Anxiety keeps us safe. It's a call to action that gets us to move or to do whatever else we need to do to be safe. But what happens when we get anxious about things that aren't a threat? What happens if we use too much anxiety? If you want to know how to beat anxiety, you need to know how it develops first. Then you have a fighting chance of dealing with it. Imagine you live close to a family who you believe, for whatever reason, wants to harm you. Seriously harm you at that. They're well known for violence, and you're sure that if they see you on the street, they'll try to hurt you. This makes going outside scary. But everyone needs to go outside sometimes. You spend your days at home, except for when you have to go to work or to the shop on the corner. At these times you're nervous, always looking around you. It can take you a long time to leave the house, and when you do, the fear is all but crippling. You spend as little time on the street as you can, and you're always ready to run if need be. Then one day, you're in the corner shop, and four of them, walking behind you. There's no escape. You feel your heart racing and your breathing rate increases. You begin to shake, your muscles become tense. There's nowhere to hide. They've already seen you, and there's only one exit, the one they're blocking. What can you do? What will they do? Amazingly, they do nothing. They've all seen you. They even said hello, and then bought a few small items and left the shop. You watch from the window as they disappear up the road, seemingly without giving you a second thought. It takes a few moments for you to calm down and go home, but something interesting happens. The next time you need to go out, you're a little less anxious, a little less scared. And there's a very good reason for that. You have a memory. The last thing you remember about this threat is that it wasn't harmful. And our most recent memories are always powerful. And because your most recent memory is reassuring, your world becomes a little bit bigger. You can go outside just a little bit more easily, and over time, the more you go out, the more memories of being safe you lay down in your head, the more confident you feel, until the anxiety eventually just disappears. So why doesn't this always happen? Well, sometimes the threat's real. I don't care how many times I go outside. Speeding cars are dangerous, and I'll get out of their way every time, no matter how safe I've been in the past. But let me tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. It was the winter of 2018, and I was driving to work through a rural part of Oxfordshire. The road was unlit, it was raining, and the sun was yet to rise. Visibility was poor, which is why fortunately I wasn't going very fast. Suddenly I noticed a small red light pass from left to right in front of my car. I braked suddenly, but it was too late, and I hit something. The cyclist went careering over the top of my vehicle and landed in the road behind me. He was dressed completely in black, had no lights on his bike, and had been completely invisible to me until he pulled out into the middle of the road directly in front of my car. The red light I'd seen was a small red reflector which only became visible in my headlights at the last moment. I stopped the car, got out, and tried to prevent other traffic from hitting him as we waited for the police and ambulance. Fortunately, he was fine, but had I been going any faster, I might have killed him. He wasn't even wearing a helmet. I never made it to work that day. Once the paramedic had assured me that he'd be fine, I gave my statement and a negative breath test to the police and determined that my vehicle was still drivable. Then I called the hospital I was working at, waited for the traffic to die down and drove back to my digs. And then it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I could have killed him. One really effective way to beat anxiety is to work out what you did wrong and devise a plan to do better, thus removing the risk, so you don't need to be anxious anymore. That's the proper use of anxiety. For example, if you almost die because your brakes didn't work, get them fixed at the local garage and then you can feel safe again. But in this case, there was nothing to fix. My car was in good working order, I was sober, and driving to the conditions along a stretch of road I knew well. I wasn't speeding, and I hadn't been distracted. There was nothing I could have done differently. And that meant there was nothing I could change to reduce the risk of killing a cyclist one day. Except stop driving. The anxiety I experienced gnawed at me day and night like a growing tightening knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. For 2 days I tortured myself with the knowledge that I'd have to drive that same dark road again next time I was on an early shift, and I genuinely didn't know if I could do it. I was genuinely helpless because I was genuinely unable to think of anything to make disaster less likely. And then the solution hit. I give up my job, hire a removal firm to take me back home to Cumbria, and never drive again. I'd get myself another job that I could walk or cycle to, and then I'd be safe. And as I made that decision, my anxiety disappeared in an instant. I'd found a way to remove the threat, and so I felt safe. That's just what happened in the first scenario, the hypothetical one with the violent family. Once we know how to avoid threat, or the threat isn't real, we can start to relax again. Sometimes that relaxation is instant, as it was for me, and sometimes it takes time, but it's always based upon a change in the perception of threat. And because we're all primed to listen to our feelings, we tend to believe them. If avoidance makes us feel safe, we believe that it really is making us safe. But it isn't. I could have saved myself from the risk of another collision, but I'd risk my quality of life by not driving again. That's a threat right there. And the longer I live without driving, the more safe memories I lay down, the more convinced I become, and the harder it becomes to change. My anxiety grows and my world shrinks. Whether the threat's real or imagined, we respond in the same way, and it's not usually all that helpful. Well, the following weekend I decided not to give up my job. Instead, I filled the car with petrol and spent hours driving around quiet roads until eventually I felt brave enough to drive the route to work. It was light when I set off, but the return journey was dark. I left myself no choice but to lay down at least one more memory of driving that road, and as it turned out, I was safe. I remained in that job for another half year or so, and by the time I eventually did drive myself home to Cumbria, I was confident enough. I still don't like passing cyclists, but at least I'm not frightened of hitting them anymore. Always remember that avoidance increases anxiety and shrinks opportunity. It's better to make what changes you can, lay down all the positive memories you can, and don't give in to emotion unless your head agrees. Not everything that feels too risky really is. I'm Stuart Sorensen. I'm a mental health nurse and trainer and the bloke behind tamtalking.co.uk. Thank you for watching.